Okay, welcome to the, for Tuesday, August 15th, 2023. I'd like to open closed session at 5:02 PM. Have roll call, please.
Councilmember White,
Here.
Councilmember Voigt,
Here.
Councilmember Lara,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Fenn,
Here.
Mayor Martinez.
Here. Seeing no public in the room, do we have any emails or phone calls for closed
I have
session?
no written requests. Carrie, do we have any callers on the line?
No callers on the line, Nicole.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pinckney, can you read the items for discussion today?
Yes, the first item for closed session, B1, is conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2 and/or 3. There are 4 claims by claimant Godart, Pietronico, Llewellyn, and Blackwell. And it's both application for permission to file a late claim. Well, there's actually 2 of those, so. And then B2 is conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. And the property is at the interchange of 4th Street and Potrero. And the negotiating parties are the City of Beaumont and ASM Beaumont Investors. And then the third item is B3, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4, 1 case.
Great, thank you for that. And with that, we will adjourn to closed session. Okay, we have returned from closed session. We have a report out, please, Mr. Pinckney.
Yes, we do. As to item B1, that was conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.92 and/or 3, 4 claims, Braden Godert, James Albert Pietranico, Shannon Llewellyn, and Gary Blackwell. Llewellyn and Blackwell had an application for permission to file a late claim, and there was reportable action taken in closed session. There was a motion to deny the application to file late claims by Llewellyn and Blackwell, and that motion was made by Councilmember White, and it was seconded by Councilmember Voigt, and the vote was Mayor Martinez in favor of denying, Mayor Pro Tem Fenn in favor of denying, Councilmember Voigt voted to deny, Councilmember Laura voted to deny, and Councilmember White also voted to deny the application for late claims. There was also a motion to deny the claims by claimants Godart and Pietranico, and that motion was made by Councilmember White, and it was seconded by Councilmember Voigt, and the vote was Mayor Martinez in favor of denying the claim, Mayor Pro Tem Fenn in favor of denying the claim, Councilmember White in favor of denying the claim, Councilmember Voigt in favor of denying the claim, and Councilmember Laura in favor of denying the claim. The second item that was discussed in closed session was item B2, and that was conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. The property, the city's interchange property at 4th Street and Potrero, the agency negotiator, the city manager. The negotiating parties, the City of Beaumont and ASM Beaumont Investors LLC, and under negotiation were price and terms. There was no reportable action taken in closed session on that item. And then item B3 was conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4 regarding one potential case. There was no reportable action taken, and that concludes the report out from closed session.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pinckney. With that, we will go to the regular session of the city council meeting for today, August 15th, and we will open up the meeting at 6:22 p.m. Roll call, please.
Councilmember White,
Here.
Councilmember Voigt,
Here.
Councilmember Laura,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Fenn,
Here.
Mayor Martinez.
Here. Before we begin our meeting today, I'd like to take a 15-second moment of silence in honor of CAL FIRE's Assistant Chief Josh Bishop, Captain Tim Rodriguez, and Pilot Tony Sousa, who perished in the Cabazon Fire helicopter collision. Please. Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember White, can you lead us, please? Okay, do we have any adjustments to the agenda or conflict of interest disclosure? All right, seeing none, then we will go to item E, recognition. Today we have the introduction of Oakley. Come on down.
That's cute.
Council, I have the pleasure of introducing our Parks and Recreation mascot, Oakley the Squirrel.
Yeah.
So earlier this year, we went on a citywide search for a mascot to represent our department. So we asked the community to submit their ideas for an icon and along with names. So we received several submissions. We narrowed those down. We put them into a bracket style system and the public voted on our Facebook page. And Oakley here is the winner. So he is a California ground squirrel. And give everyone a twirl here, Oakley. California ground squirrel. And his mission is just to enhance the Parks and Rec vibe in Beaumont, just to encourage people to come out to our parks and our facilities and to participate in our programs and just be an overall representative for our department.
Wow, outstanding. That's a lot of squirrels. Well, welcome aboard, Oakley. We look forward to having you spread the word for the Parks and Recreation. I know a lot of children's going to be happy with that, so thank you. That was a great job. Any comments from council? Can we get a picture?
Picture.
We're gonna move
We'll
over.
have you
Oh,
come
boy.
right up here.
Okay. Oh, yeah, probably. Yes, I love it. That's great.
All right, we're gonna have to go around.
A little bit more. That's a lot of squirrel, I'm saying.
Okay, can I do just one thing real quick? Today is City Hall Selfie Day. Can we do a selfie in his?
I don't even know
I'll
what that
try
means.
and get myself out of it.
What does that mean?
All right, let's see if we can make it look like.
Oh, we're gonna do themselves.
So lean in over there.
Oh, we're gonna lean in there. We're supposed to be in it too?
There we go.
Zing, zing.
Do I have all of you?
I guess.
Hold on, I gotta get out.
Oh, my Lord. Good job,
All right, so we look forward to you visiting Oakley at the CRC and all of our different events. He will be there.
Right, great job.
Thank you.
Now, you've seen it all. All right, so with that, I'd like to remind the public that our restrooms are currently under construction. So if you need to use the restroom, just please contact staff and they'll help you get access to the administration office's restroom. All right, so that leads us to item F for public comment period. Do we have public comment this evening?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let me read. Any one person may address the city council on any matter. I'll stress not on this agenda at this time. There is a 3-minute time limit on public comments. There will be no sharing or passing of time to another person. State law prohibits the city council from discussing or taking action brought up by your comments. This meeting will be open to the public and conducted in a virtual format to be inclusive of all participation preferences. Public comment participation is encouraged by emailing any comment to the city clerk's office or by calling and using the phone number provided on the front of the agenda. Any one person wishing to speak can do so by filling out a form at the back of the room and handing it to a staff member. I will open public comment at 6:27 p.m.
David Castaldo?
Thank you, Mayor and council members, for the opportunity to speak. Most of my comments will be directed at Councilmember White tonight. Councilmember White, I'd just like to remind you of something because I know exactly how old you are. 44 years ago today, on this very day, Apocalypse Now was released in theaters. Just give you an idea of how old we are. The next thing I would like to address to you is that I believe for the last 8 or 9 years you've been on the ERICA committee and represented our city. I'd like to personally thank you for that. I'm sure not a whole lot of people do that and understand what that is, but I served on it for 4 years. About a month ago, I got to see it in action personally when we were evacuated from my house, when we had the fires. That was the view from the back of my house. Okay. And watching and being a firsthand of that, and watching the coordination between Beaumont PD, Beaumont Fire, CAL Fire, and all the other crews, the aerial crews, the rescue crews, was something of an orchestra. Very coordinated, very organized. And the work that you have done, the work that other committee members have done, has surely paid off because communication is key. And I was just amazed. I actually paid a pretty penny, and I had a Airbnb out in Havasu that weekend. We went out there Thursday. I got to sleep in it for one day. We were back out here on Friday because of the fires. And that very expensive B&B actually turned out for Vanna, my wife and I, that we got to sleep on the floor at my shop for 3 days because we were evacuated. But I will say that, really? Already? Gee. But I will say I really appreciate a lot of members of the community and my friends, because I got more people calling me about, you okay, Dave? You need any help? No, I'm fine, but it was a great way. Unfortunately, it was an unfortunate way for the community and saw how they coordinated, but in the end, it was very little damage to most people's homes and no life or injuries, but it was something to see the coordination, and thank you for the service on Erica. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your comment.
Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
I have no written comments.
Okay, with that, we'll close public comment at 6:30 PM. That brings us to item G, the consent calendar. Do we have any items that would like to be pulled by council? And do we have any comments on any of the items?
I have no written comments. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line for consent items?
I have no callers on the line.
Okay, with that, any items to be pulled, or I'll entertain a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve items G1 through G3 on the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt,
Yes.
Councilmember Laura,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn,
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes. With that, item H, the Youth Council report. Just to mention that the Youth Council now will be starting over for the 23-24 year. And we have applications that are being taken now through the end of August for our new council. Item I, that brings us to the public hearings. Item I1, hold a public hearing to consider a resolution approving rates for wastewater service effective September 1st, 2023, and rescinding all prior established wastewater rates. We have staff report.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. The city is obligated to establish rates to cover all costs of providing wastewater services. To do that, the city obtained a consulting firm, Raftelis, in December of 2022. Before I hand it over to the consultant to kind of go over their findings of the study, I want to go over the process of what the city did. In April, staff brought forward with the consultant preliminary results that came from the study that was reviewed. In May, the consultant staff reviewed with council at a public meeting rates that were based on different scenario planning. And city council at that time provided some direction to city staff and the consultant. With that, on June 6th, the consultant staff brought forward the amendments that were made, provided from direction that the council gave, as well as the proposed rates. And so at that meeting, council approved to send out Prop 218 notices, which is compliance with 218. You have to do 45 days prior to public hearing. City staff did that, and on August 3rd, the city hosted an open house and tour of the wastewater treatment plant, and that was for the public and Beaumont residents to see firsthand how the system operates. And to take a tour with city just to ask any questions or, get feedback on stuff that they wanted to do. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Angie from Raftelis. She's going to kind of go over what the findings from the study were and the process that they took.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, I'm Angie Flores with Raftelis. I'm here to present the findings of our study. Through my presentation, I will go through the purpose of the hearing and the requirements of Prop 218. I'll go through the rate study process that we followed to get to the final results. And then finally, we'll talk about the proposed rates and the projected customer impacts on the bills. So the purpose of today's hearing is to meet the requirements of Prop 218. Prop 218 requires that a public hearing be held by the governing body to consider all protests for the proposed rates. A notice was sent to all of the customers, and the public hearing cannot be held any sooner than 45 days after mailing that notice. If a majority protests, then the rate changes cannot be adopted. So also, as part of Prop 218, the rates cannot exceed their costs. So it's important that we have a good handle on the revenue requirements and that we're setting the rates to cover those costs of the utility. Also, the rates must be proportional to the cost of service. So basically, each customer class has to pay for their, for how they use the system. So in a minute, we'll kind of go through that here in a minute. And then finally, the service must be available to the customers. So they must be taking service from the system in order to have those rates adopted. Just a few facts about your system. You have about 17,000 single-family residential customers, 72 multifamily residential, and then 426 commercial and 6 industrial customers. All of those were considered as part of the study, and we allocated the cost to each of those customer classes. You treat about 1.34 billion gallons, and that was what we estimated for FY23. Your funding sources, again, your utility is funded 100% through the rates that are paid by your customers. And again, that's an important factor when we're considering Prop 218. The enterprise fund does not receive taxes from the general fund and is only funded through those rates. So the rate study process that we follow, and this is industry standard, where we do a financial plan and we develop the revenue requirements for, in this case, a 5-year period. And those revenue requirements are based on your operating expenses, your capital needs, and then considers any other miscellaneous expenses that miscellaneous revenues that may also come in to offset some of those costs. The second step is the cost of service analysis. This is where we allocate the cost to those customer classes based on how they use your system. So based on how, what amount of flow they send to your plant, what the strength of their wastewater is that goes to the plant, as well as their impact on your customer service systems. And so all of those costs get allocated to the class based on those parameters. The final step is the rate design. And this is how your customers will pay for their cost of service. And so that's the final step for the study. So the financial plan. So we went through and we developed a forecast for a 5-year period. Through that analysis, we determined that you needed the following rate revenue increases to meet your costs. These rate revenue increases, as you can see for 24, the effective date is September 2023. And then for the following 4 years, the new rates would be effective in July. The rate increases range from 6% in the first year and down to 2% in 2028. And that just is a reflection of how we've forecasted those costs. So why are the rate increases necessary? So as we all know, inflation has been really through the roof. Your last rate study was completed in 2018, and you considered a period of 2018 to 2023. Since then, here's some consumer price index numbers. The Los Angeles CPI increased by 21.07%. The Engineering News Record Construction Cost Index increased by 24.76%. So just from an inflationary perspective, costs have taken a hit and have increased significantly. You've also had some regulatory requirements. So you completed a $110 million wastewater treatment plant upgrade. And this was necessary so that you could continue to maintain those regulatory requirements. Finally, there's other continuing capital improvements, repair and replacement, the things that are required to keep your wastewater system financially sustainable and that you're providing the service that your customers need. Those, for the 5-year period, total $15.7 million. So these are those components that are really driving the need for these rate increases. So on slide 11, these two graphs really illustrate what would happen to your utility if we did not do these rate increases. And so you can see that very quickly we go negative on your reserve balances. With the proposed rate increases that I showed with the percentages that we need for the revenue, you can see that we continue to maintain and meet your operating reserve targets. So again, the cost of service analysis is where we allocate the cost to your customer classes. The allocation is based on the volume of wastewater discharges from your customers, the strength of that wastewater. So what is their BOD, TSS, TDS that's coming to your plant? The cost of service ensures that your customers pay their own way. And it maximizes the fairness and equity so that we ensure that you don't have one customer class subsidizing another customer class. And again, that's an important component of Prop 218. It really works to eliminate any cross subsidies. So these were the cost of service results. I'm not going to go through every number here, but you can see that at a high level, residential is about 81.2% of the total cost of service. And these are all the classes that we considered: single family, schools, commercial, and your industrial classes. So again, rate design. So rate design is basically how you recover those costs through your rate structures. For the most part, we did not change your rate design. We kept that the same. Your single-family residential and multifamily residential will continue to pay a fixed charge. Schools will continue to pay on a per-student basis. And then your commercial and industrial customers have a monthly service charge and a commodity charge. And that commodity rate is based on the volume of wastewater that they send to your plant. So that actually gets metered. So we did not make any changes to that rate design. So slide 17 shows the proposed rates over time. Pull up my notes here. So the single family rate, the current rate is $47.21. That's increasing in 24 to $50.22. And then going up over the next 4 years to $56.51. The multifamily and mobile home is going from $29.24 and decreasing in 23 to $28.55, but then increasing in those future years, and so forth. So if there's anyone in particular here that you'd like for me to discuss, but these are the monthly service charges. And again, for the single family, for the residential, those are the only charges. And you can see that on the commodity rates table here, that they do not pay a commodity rate. Your commercial and industrial customers, their rates are going from $277, at least for the low strength, to $491 in 24. And then your industrial customers, you'll see that their rates are individualized to each industrial customer. So we did allocate costs to each individual industrial customer. So this slide 19, shows the projected monthly bills. Again, the residential and the schools are just the monthly fees, so those are set based on those monthly minimum charges. For commercial customers, these reflect 40 CCF. And for the industrial customers, those monthly bills are based on an average of their wastewater that they send to the plant. Any questions?
Do we have any at this time?
I do have a quick question.
Okay, let's ask your questions pertaining to,
Yeah, okay. Angie, so question
Yes.
for you on the rate for this per student. Is that something the city came up with? Is that a county rate? Is that a state rate? How did that rate come about?
The original rate structure of per student.
Per student?
Basis. I'm not sure when the city first adopted that rate structure.
That was the structure of the previous study. And so when reviewed with Raftelis, it was determined that to keep the structure the same, so there's not a large deviation, to go ahead and use that same structure.
And do we know if that rate is similar to other areas? I mean, are we higher, lower, average in Riverside County? I know we're kind of in an area where water costs are higher in general. But obviously this is to treat that, but I'd like to know if that is a reasonable rate compared to other areas or other cities.
We didn't compare for students, we compared other cities for residential rates.
Okay.
Right, but this rate is based on how the schools, what their flow is that goes to your plant, so.
And then just came up with, so if they had a general amount of water going through, then it was figured out by a number of students at the time?
Yeah, we've been charging the school district based on number of students for about 20 years, or as
Okay.
long as I can remember.
Okay.
Right, so the way it got calculated was once we determined what their revenue requirement was for the schools, then we divided that by the number of students, and we probably had a projection from the city of what the number of students are, and that's how we got to that rate.
And the city still feels that that's a good way to go, because since that's still the recommendation, because I know that our student population has increased quite a bit too, so, okay. All right, well, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Ms. White? You're good? Quick question, the staff report mentions about a surcharge. Is the commodity rate the surcharge? 'Cause I read something
The
about a surcharge
surcharge?
for the, so you have for commercial and industrial, you have monthly rate, and then you have the rate based on what they used, and it was mentioned as a surcharge. Is that what you're?
The surcharge would apply if somebody comes into the city new and/or isn't matching their projected contribution to the system based on everything we Prop 218 noticed. So that would only apply to a new business or someone who's not complying with their estimated discharge strength, because this is all based on a balance to make everything equal for everybody.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. All right, seeing none, go ahead. Any more questions from council? I think you're good. You have continue with your presentation?
No, that was
Okay,
it.
I'd like to go ahead and get ready to open the public hearing, and then I'm sure we'll probably call you back up here in a little bit.
Can I
Thank
just
you
add
for-
too that
yes.
we have to do as a part of Prop 218, we have to do a count of protests. And so the city received 25 written protests as of the end of today.
Right.
We received one earlier to put into the record, so one additional.
So 26 total? Okay, thank you. We'll enter that for the record. So let's go ahead and open public hearing at 6:49 PM. Do we have public comment?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
First speaker is David Castaldo.
Thank you once again for the opportunity, Mayor. I may have missed the presentation on the, what defines as a commercial, low strength, medium strength, or high strength. But and I understand it costs money to get rid of our poop. So I'm not gonna question the money that that you need to operate this. I do have some concerns, and they're concerns. I don't wanna debate it or whether or not, but they're concerns as to whether it's being fair to the commercial customers and what the definition of those are. I also would like to make you aware of the people the commercial businesses that have actually owned the property and would be in charge these service charges. From my understanding, there was a percentage that was allowed for landscaping. Okay, and what's considered landscaping? That would be the frontage of the property. However, there are commercial lots, such as my own, that is a corner property. So do I get credit for the frontage and the side that I was mandated as part of my agreement with the city to take care of that area? Again, I'm not trying to argue, I'm just trying to question the fairness and if the rate study took that into effect. I am obviously not the only commercial property in this city that's on a corner. And is it an estimate? Is it a study estimate? Or how is that factored? Now, a couple of you members and staff has been to my shop. We're basically an office. Okay, there's 2 people living on the property that's legal because it's M-zone. And there's basically 3 people in the office that work. That is equivalent to a family of 5 for 8 hours a day, 40 hours. We don't live there as in a house. Again, gee, thanks. But again, is that fair? And how is all of these based? I just missed the part of what the degrees of commercialism is and how it's figured. But I just expect, and I have faith in the council that it's fair, or you guys are gonna, or at least you'll look into it if you don't believe it is. But thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Casala. We'll most likely address that after the hearing here.
Next speaker is Betty Young.
Actually, I don't have a comment at this time.
Okay. Next speaker is Todd, sorry, I can't read the last name.
Cargill?
Cargill?
You got to talk for 20 minutes. I wish I could talk for 20 minutes.
It's 3 minutes, sir.
Yeah, I just want to know, this was a bad design to start with, and the ratepayers are paying for it. This wasn't built with a biodigester where you could harvest methane, run it through converted diesel engines that run on natural gas, turning generators and selling power back to Edison like Ontario Vineyard at the 60 does. They're making money. But this city didn't have the thinking cap on when they designed this thing. All right. And City Council Mayor, did anybody campaign on the premise that you were going to raise our rates? I didn't think so. And then why is this called Prop 218 if it's not on the ballot? A ballot means, a proposition is usually something you vote on. I get the feeling this would get shot down in about 5 minutes, And then, let me get this straight. You use ratepayer money to pay for a bias study to raise our rates, right? Is that what it is? Because I could hire somebody that says, do a study that says this ought to be free or low cost. So I'm not in favor of that, all right? And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you for
Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
I have no other speakers.
and no written comments.
No, sir.
Okay, with that, we will close public hearing at 6:54 PM and open it up for council discussion. Any lights? Who wants to jump in, huh? Mr. White taking the plunge? All right.
Could you address the 2 issues that Mr. Castaldo raised? The difference between low, medium, and high strength, and then the taking into account landscaping when as a corner lot may not have as much landscaping. How much did the landscaping go into the evaluation of the commercial properties?
Right, so when, I mentioned that we look at the flow, of the customer class. For the commercial class, we actually looked at billed water consumption for the months of January through April. So taking into consideration that those would be low irrigation months. And then we further reduced it to 85% when we considered the amount of flow, to take into consideration that there could be some commercial customers that are irrigating. So we did take that into consideration, and we adjusted it to 85%, so that we were sure that the rate study wasn't allocating costs based on more wastewater than what was actually going to your plant. So that was actually taken into consideration when we did that. We call it a mass balance analysis. For your, what constitutes a low, medium, and high-strength commercial customer, that's based on their estimated BOD and TSS. And there's actually a table in the report. I don't know if y'all have the report in front of you, but it's on page 35. And so for commercial low strength, those are professional offices, department and retail stores. So their BOD and TSS tends to be lower because they're not doing a whole lot with, within the store. So it's an office that someone is, two people are sitting in, or just really using their facilities, the toilets and things. The commercial medium strength, those are constituted as repair shops with service stations, bars without dining facilities, hospital and convalescent, hotel, motel without dining. So their BOD and TSS tends to be a little bit higher, ranging from BOD ranging from 180 to 310, and the TSS ranging from 280 or 120 to 280. The high strength, these are markets with garbage disposals, bakeries, wholesale, restaurants, and again, their BOD is much higher. It ranges from 800 BOD million gallons per liter to 1,000, and the TSS is from 600 to 800. So those are the categories that we used.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Got a couple more questions.
Yes.
This is a process called Prop 218 because of a bill that was approved by the voters in '96, that in order for a local agency to increase utility rates, that we had to go through a extensive process and involve the community an opportunity to look at what we're doing, as well as come in and provide input and, at this point, protest or not protest, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And what if we had not, well, that's probably not a question for you, but I think that's all I had for you, but I do have a couple more.
Okay, let me ask her a quick question, just on the BOD TSS. You go on, the number is really what decides that. So you can have maybe one of those that don't fall into the numbers. Is it the number that decides what level they go to, not the description of the commercial?
It's the number.
It's the number, okay. Okay, any questions for Ms. Flores?
In your presentation on the CPI, and you use the LA Basin, is that just consumer price index in terms of cost as a whole for all services and cost of living in general?
Right, that was just to show kind of what type of inflation we're seeing in this region.
Okay, and I have often seen the Inland Empire separated from that. Is that, when you looked at that, was Inland Empire separate from that, or is LA considered, do we fall in that LA Basin, is my question?
I cannot answer that.
Okay, all right. It's not a
Sorry.
big deal, just wondering because, when the intent of the question was to point out, we're looking at very small rates in general compared to the 21% we've seen across the board for cost of living.
That's right. That's right. And, you know, really, we worked with your staff in looking at your O&M expenses, looking at historical trends, looking at, you know, where certain items were increasing, chemicals, those sorts of things to determine, to make sure that they were appropriately forecasted.
Okay, and then to further clarify the Prop 218 process, a rate study is required because of 218, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And Prop 218 requires that we do this detailed cost of service and ensure that each customer class is paying their way.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Flores. We'll call you up if we need you again.
Okay.
Mr. White, continue with staff.
Yes, so we heard at the start of the presentation that the wastewater fund is separate from the general fund of the city. So the wastewater fund is what funds the rate study, funds all of the improvements, all of the possible failures. And so we took into account, I believe, in our earlier meetings, we discussed it, but we looked forward 10 years as to what issues may come up, as to what our rising costs may be, and I think that's where the consumer price index comes in. And if we do not, and I've heard of some cities who have not properly funded their future, that at some point, if we don't take into account the increases that we need to keep the wastewater treatment plant sustainable, we don't have the backup of going to the general fund to pay that cost. And if we determine that is something that's going to happen and, you know, we decide not to move forward with this, and 3, 4, 5 years from now, we are at a point where our reserves have been depleted or significantly depleted, and we don't have the funding to continue to keep the plant sustainable, we would then have to do a rate increase at that point before stopping the state from coming in and managing our wastewater treatment plant, correct?
Yeah, you're correct. So yeah, you're correct. The wastewater fund is an enterprise fund, so it's supposed to be self-supporting based off of rates. And so with those rates, they need to cover the cost to run the whole system. And that would include costs for operations, capital, CIP. You have a debt service. So there's a debt service on the wastewater bonds for the expansion of the wastewater treatment plant. So all those require that the rates are able to meet the needs of those costs. What happens is if you were to not be able to meet that, you could technically take a loan from the general fund, but there needs to be a plan in place to be able to then get back to being self-supporting. The problem is that if you're not increasing rates regularly, it's a lot harder to catch up. And so then you have larger rates in the future to be able to catch up to those costs.
So instead of a 6%, 5% down to 2%, if we hold off on this 5 years from now, we may be coming back for a 30, 35% rate increase over 5 years?
You could.
Okay. And I think as a city council, we have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that the wastewater treatment plant can stay sustainable and that we can continue to provide the services. That's all I had, Mayor.
All right, I just want to remind the public, so public comments have been closed. It's not a workshop format, so your comments will be taken.
She got to talk for 30 minutes, and I got 2 minutes,
Yeah,
you know?
so-
I
you
mean,
could-
my taxes are paying your salary here, you know, I mean,
But we do have format, and you did have your full 3 minutes, and you chose to do 2 of the
well,
3.
I used 2 minutes, can I get
Well,
my minute
no, I'm
back?
sorry, it's closer. I apologize.
Biodigester and some generators will help you pay your costs, okay?
Thank you for that. Okay,
Go to
Mr.
Vineyard wastewater treatment plant off the 60. Take
Alright.
a tour there.
Appreciate
See all
that.
that poop gas, one of those generators.
We appreciate that, but we need to continue. Thank you, Mr. White, Mr. Lara.
Yeah, Thaxton, I think you could answer these for me. So when we started the process for the new plant, the old plant was currently processing 4 million MGD, correct?
It was about 3.2 to 3.5 when we started. And you're required to start your expansion process when you meet 75% of design. So once we hit 3 at that time, we're mandated by permit in the state to start your planning because you've hit 75% of your capacity.
So we were a little bit behind
We
the
actually
curve there.
were a little bit behind,
In fact, I think the water board was looking at us and threatening fines because we didn't move fast enough.
That is correct.
So we got that moving. The plant was designed initially, or we needed to design to a 6 million MGD, correct? So,
That is correct.
Is that correct? Okay. But council at that time also planned ahead. And what is the maximum capacity that we can process through that plant now?
So the plant's rating across all parts of the plant and the submission to the state, it's officially recorded as a 6 MGD plant.
Right.
We have the space and the storage to take that up to 8 without significant construction. There's built-in expandability in this design. We have handled flows, peak flows of over 12 MGD coming into the plant successfully.
So at the time we designed this, what we did was we looked ahead as best we could. We needed 6 MGD, and we planned to process 8, and the plant during the heavy rains was able to process 12. So it is something that council does take into consideration, and we work hard to try to look ahead and make sure that the tax dollars or the ratepayers are getting what they're paying for. So thank you, Texan. That's all I have.
Okay, any other comments from council, questions? Okay, at this time then, we will look for action. So do we have motion by council member? I need to go back over here and see where I'm at. Oh, there it is. All right, so we have recommended action.
Mayor, I move to approve the recommended action. Waive the full reading and adopt by title only a resolution of the City Council of the City of Beaumont, California, approving rates for wastewater service effective September 1st, 2023, and rescinding all prior established water rates.
I'll second.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Boyd,
Yes.
Councilmember Laura,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn,
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes. With that, move to I2. That is first reading on ordinance rescinding the ordinance number 1091 and amending chapter 3.39 of the Beaumont Municipal Code, Western Riverside County Transportation Uniform Mitigation Fee Program. Staff report, is that Mr. Hart?
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So, excuse me, yes, the item before you is regarding the TUMP fees and city remittance. Just a bit of background, the city is a member of WRCOG, which is the Western Riverside Council of Governments. It was a, excuse me, an agency formed in 2003 in order to help mitigate shortfall in funds needed to enlarge the capacity of regional highways and arterials. And as a result of this, a transportation uniform mitigation fee, otherwise known as a TUMP fee, was created and levied on all future residential, commercial, and industrial development. Currently, staff calculates the fees for all development projects. The fees are due at the or the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, but can be paid as early as the issuance of a building permit. The fees are remitted monthly to WRCOG and are audited on an annual basis. The process to calculate TUMP fees, particularly the non-residential fees, can be tedious and time-consuming. In addition, under the current process, any balance in TUMP obligation due to incorrect development or from project information or fee calculations is a responsibility of the participating jurisdiction. So staff is now proposing to modify a process in which TUMP fees are created and levied. In 2017, WRCOG created a process in which WRCOG staff will actually calculate the required fee as well as process payments for those fees directly. Changing the manner in which TUMP fees are calculated and paid significantly reduces the risk to the city for being responsible of any incorrect fee calculations. Under the proposed process, which is consistent with the TUMP administrative plan, it specifically states, in the event of a participating jurisdiction makes the election to have WRCOG calculate and collect TUMP, WRCOG shall take full responsibility for calculating the TUMP obligation, and any shortfall in the calculation shall not be the responsibility of the participating jurisdiction. So with regard to any existing and future credit agreements for the benefit of city improvements, they will still be managed and reported monthly by city staff, which is consistent with our current procedures. And with that, staff is recommending that city council amend section 60 of chapter 3.39 of the Beaumont Municipal Code, which allows TUMP fees to be calculated and processed directly by WRCOG. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hart. So, for public comment, well, wait a minute, this is a hearing, I believe. Yes, so I need to open a public hearing up at 7:09 PM. Do we have comment?
I have no written comments. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
Okay, with that, we'll be closing the public hearing at 7:10 PM. Council discussion. We're gonna be different. We're gonna go this way. Councilmember Voigt.
Thank you, happily. I just have one question. Do other cities do it this way?
Yeah, virtually all other cities in WRCOG do it this way. In 2017, I think there may be one other agencies, and don't quote me, maybe March JPA, but all other agencies elected to have WRCOG calculate and collect fees.
Now our WRCOG rep, Councilmember
Oh.
Laura.
Jeff, I just want to say I appreciate you bringing this forward. I do think it does take a lot of staff time. There has always been, at least in my experience, there's always been a lot of concern in regards to calculating non-residential rates, especially when it comes to gas stations. And WRCOG does go back after the jurisdiction if they make any errors financially. They're responsible to come up with a difference. So I think this is a great move. Will we be sending the developers to Riverside, or is this something that can be taken care of over the phone or via email? Is it easy for them to do that?
Yeah, so they've created a portal since it's in. It took a little while to get up and running, but they have a portal as well where you can process payments and those things will go through. WRCOG is still going to rely on the city for, development plans and information. But they do have a mechanism so that the actual developers do not have to go to WRCOG offices to pay these fees.
So will they do a final accounting or a final review? I know that they do reviews annually. Will
Yeah,
they
so
do that once
they'll
we
still
switch over?
audit building permits to ensure obviously that, what we provided is consistent with what they have. So, and mainly just to see if there was an omission of any building permits that were not necessarily sent. But as far as the fee calculation and remittance, all through WRCOG.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I have, Mayor.
Great, thanks. Councilmember White?
I know I don't think you were here in 2017, weren't you? You know why we didn't? Was it we were still in negotiations with WRCOG settlement at that point? Okay. And I wanted to ask the question that Mr. Lara answered, which is what if WRCOG miscalculates the amount? What is that process? Is the developer then appeals to WRCOG? Does the city appeal to WRCOG? I mean, do you know how that process works?
Yeah, so in miscalculations, you mean if they're overcharged or undercharged?
Well, what if they undercharge and then come back and want more?
Yeah,
mean,
so that
those
would
are
be
what I'm
directly
worried about.
between WRCOG and the developer themselves. I would imagine in that case, if they undercharged and it was noticed by WRCOG, depending on the severity of it, that they would go after the developer for any deficiencies due, but that would be between them two.
So if we go this direction, then I know in the past, and I don't know if we're still doing it or to what extent, that we take credit so in other words, we work with the developer to get the project done and we get credits on the TUMP fees. Is that no longer an option?
No, we would certainly pursue not only credit agreements, but potentially reimbursement agreements. So if for a development, they elect to actually construct an improvement that's on the TUMP network, whether it's their primary or backbone network, there is provisions that would allow for a reimbursement up to the maximum TUMP eligible amount for whatever projects they're doing, and they could be reimbursed. So that would not go away, neither would our ability or incentive to pursue credit agreements, which, allow the city to keep these improvements local.
That's all I had. Thank you, Mayor.
And Mr. Hart, TUMP doesn't charge any type of service fee or pass any charge over to the developer, do they?
No, there's no fees. I know when this originally came in, there was fees that were associated with, if people wanted to pay credit card payment, especially if you're making a $200,000 payment, that there was some significant fees, but I think they've got that all out with the ACH to payments and ways that there's no additional fees to the developer.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we waive the full first reading of an ordinance of the City of Beaumont, California, amending Section 060 Beaumont Municipal Code, Section 3.39, to include a process whereby Western Riverside Council of Governments, WRCOG, shall calculate and collect fees under the Western Riverside County Transportation Uniform Mitigation Fee, TUNF, program directly.
I'll second.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Boyd,
Yes.
Councilmember Laura,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn,
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes. And with that, takes us to item J, action items. Item J1, to award a professional services agreement in the amount not to exceed $997,160 to Tom Dodson and Associates for the preparation of an adaptive management and mitigation plan.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. So this item is our next step in our process to produce and distribute recycled water. It is to essentially do an environmental study, but a very specific one that looks at the discharge and the environmental impacts from our wastewater plant down the stream. And then looks at the implications for us to pull that water out. It's a required part of the study and part of the process to file the 1211 change petition, which is a formality we have to do with the Division of Water Rights. And when we file that and request to, essentially, I know it sounds funny, but it's to keep our own water. We have to ask permission for that, and part of that is they'll want proof for the environmental impacts downstream. And we went out to bid. We know it's a very specialized field of an already narrow market for environmental studies. We did invite several firms that were anywhere on the spectrum of this. We had about 40 people look at it and interact. I'm guessing the same acronym is used somehow in the school system, because we saw a lot of school supply places looking at our RFP. But ultimately, we received one bid from Dodson and Associates. They're well known. They came well recommended for this type of work. And then their sub is West Yost, another very accomplished and experienced specifically in our region for the groundwater management and the basin monitoring. So we interviewed the firm. We also presented this to the RFP subcommittee, and the interview went great. The subcommittee bought in and passed it, and we're here before you tonight asking approval for the item.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll ask for, is there any public comment?
I have no written requests. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
Okay, seeing none, any discussion from council, or if we're ready to entertain a motion, I'll do such. Question?
Mayor, if there's no questions, I'll make a motion to authorize the mayor to execute a professional service agreement with Tom Dodson and Associates for an adaptive management and mitigation plan in the amount not to exceed $997,160.
I'll second.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Boyd,
Yes.
Councilmember Laura,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn,
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes. Right, with that, item J2, to award a professional services agreement to Wildan Financial Services for a variety of development impact fee studies in a not-to-exceed amount of $79,080. Staff report, East U Station.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. This item is for a development impact fee study. The last study was completed in 2017. Development impact fees are assessed to new development, and that is to mitigate the citywide impacts that the new development has on public improvements, public services, and community amenities. We issued an RFP and received response from 2 vendors. Those cost proposals are included in the staff report. We went ahead and interviewed both consultants, and it was determined after review of the proposals and through the interviews that Wildan just had a better understanding of the scope of the project. They had more experience aligned with what the city was looking for and a better overall approach to how they were going to complete the project with city staff. So therefore, we presented that finding to the RFP subcommittee, who agreed with city's recommendation. And so with that, we are recommending to approve a contract with Wildan. The fiscal impact is a portion of the fee study will be paid from the general fund that has been budgeted in the current fiscal year. And for capacity fees, those will be paid from the wastewater, the fee study, which is a project WW03. So the recommended action is to approve a professional services agreement with Wildan Financial Services at not to exceed cost of $79,080, and that's to conduct a variety of development impact fee studies. And I'm available for any questions you have.
Thank you, Ms. Eustachian. Do we have public comment?
I have no written comments. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
Okay, seeing none, we'll open to council discussion. Mr. White, get your light first.
What time frame before we have a report that we can act on? How long? Any idea?
The full study was, I believe, 4 to 5 months. So I would hope that we'd be able to bring something back, even if it's preliminary, within about 3 to 4 months.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Lara?
Yeah, I see here that there's a sewer capacity fee study. Can you please make sure that you clarify the difference between the capacity study that's being proposed now and the rate study that we just did recently?
Yeah, so these are the connection fees to connect into the system for new development. And a reason for looking at these is that right now it's very staff time intensive to calculate what those fees are for the permits that are coming through. And so it's more so looking at the structure of the way that the fees are being calculated in reference to how they are currently set up.
So it'll be to address the cost that a developer would pay prior to connecting to our system before they
Correct.
build anything, right?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that anybody out there saw that we're doing another rate study. No, it's a capacity, it's different.
Correct.
Thank you.
Ms. Eustachian, I just had a couple of concerns with the way that the RFP was done. So first of all, we show a comparison of $79,080 for Wildan total, but for DTA, we show $85,000, when in fact, you're including the additional fee studies of $7,500 in there. Don't you think that should be subtracted, since we didn't ask for an additional study? So in my opinion, shouldn't we be comparing 77,000 to 79,000?
Well, what we did is, as part of the RFP process, we asked them to look at our fees and also to include maybe any additional fees that we are not collecting currently. Wildan's approach was that they were going to take it as one big project, and they're going to look at all of the fees, and with that, any new additional fees. And so that's how they wrapped it into their cost proposal, whereas DTA included any additional fees based on what was already in here would be an extra cost.
Okay, so we're getting those three, and if they find more, then it goes additional to the
Right,
75.
right.
Thank you for that clarification. All right, seeing no other discussion on that, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll move to approve a professional services agreement with Wildan Financial Services at a not-to-exceed cost of $79,080 to conduct a variety of development impact fee studies.
I'll second.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt?
Yes.
Councilmember Laura?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn?
Yes.
Mayor Martinez?
Yes. With that, it takes us to item J3, the Second Amendment to the Professional Service Agreement with EXP US Services, Inc. Hello,
Good
sir.
evening. EXP US Services, Inc., or EXP, is requesting a fee increase in the amount of $20,003.96 for a total professional service agreement amount of $524,064.96 to cover additional costs to EXP's subconsultants. EXP is providing engineering services for preliminary and final design for the Beaumont Master Drainage Plan Line 2, Stage 1 project, or Capital Improvement Program, CIP number 2019-019. The project, just as a brief reminder, is funded from Riverside County Flood Control Cooperative Funding Agreement in the amount of $5 million. The intent of the project is to design and construct a series of catch basins and large diameter storm drain pipe that starts in Chestnut near 6th Street and discharges in Berkshire Channel near 1st and Pennsylvania. As a part of the initial analysis, EXP and city staff determined that the downstream facilities did not have enough capacity to handle the design flow. City staff met with Riverside County Flood Control District on several occasions to discuss the issues and potential solutions. Initially, a 5-acre detention basin was proposed upstream. However, after several site-specific evaluations, nobody wanted to give us their property for free. An upstream basin was not feasible. City staff also evaluated increasing the capacity in Berkshire Channel, creating a downstream detention basin, and reducing the capacity of the storm drain system. EXP performed additional hydrological analysis, which shows modifying Berkshire Channel and creating a smaller downstream basin are feasible. EXP is finalizing the hydrology and hydraulic study and started utility research and field survey. A preliminary design is projected to be completed in December 2023 this year, and final PS&E is anticipated to be completed September of 2024. The additional analysis and evaluations required a significant amount of time. Although EXP was able to perform the preliminary services, EXP's subconsultants did not perform any work for approximately 2.5 years. Subsequently, the 3 consultants have requested a rate increase to cover additional operating costs and inflation. The total increase, as stated before, is approximately $20,000. A breakdown of each consultant's fee increase is included in the staff report. In addition to the fee increase, city staff is also recommending that the contract term be extended 1 year to February 16th, 2025. This concludes my presentation. Staff and Jeff is available for any questions.
Thank you for that. Do we have public comment, Ms. Wheelwright?
I have no written comments. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
All right, thank you for that. Do we have any comments, questions, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, with the construction work that's going on with Pennsylvania and the findings that were brought to our attention, any conflict with the widening of Pennsylvania or potential grade crossing at the railroad tracks?
Sure. For the potential grade separation, there is a conflict. However, early on in the process, we identified it, that they're going to lower, or Pennsylvania Avenue is going to lower approximately 20-something feet. So the depth of the storm drain that is proposed in Pennsylvania had to accommodate that future drop in elevation.
Okay.
It's been accounted for. It can still gravity flow, but it makes it a little bit more expensive to construct.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilmember White?
So, this is about 20,000-ish, right?
Correct.
The increase. And so just so I understand the numbers, the budget for the whole project is 5 million, but this is only 20% increase basically on the 500,000 fees for this consultant, correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay, and I know that often, and I was trying to look back to see, we're just, you're not asking us to amend a budget. You're not asking us to amend the budget. But when we do these projects, don't we have a built-in contingency amount that when we look at one of these contracts?
We do on construction. For design services, it's generally just a contract amount.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And the, a question I had was that the funding was through, grant on the original funding. Is this still grant money, or is this money coming from a different source?
This is still grant money.
Some grant. Right, well, no further questions or discussion. I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll move to approve a second amendment to the professional services agreement with eXp US Services Incorporated to extend the term for 1 year and a new not-to-exceed amount of $524,000, $524,064.96.
I'll second.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt,
Yes.
Councilmember Laura,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn,
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes, thank you, sir. That brings us to item J4, service agreement between the County of Riverside and the City of Beaumont for Brookside Avenue slurry seal improvements.
Mayor, before we move on to this item, I just want to verify that there's no conflict of interest with proximity of where we live to Brookside, since Brookside runs the whole length of the city, pretty much.
Generally exception, also there's now a exception for,
Is your microphone on?
yeah, it's on.
Okay.
Yeah, there's an exception in the conflict rules for these type of improvements, slurry seal.
Because my property line backs up to Brookside, so I just want to make
Yeah,
sure.
you should be fine. There's an
Okay.
exception.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and with that, Mr. Vessel, are you doing this report? Well, there you go.
The only exception would be if it was going to substantially improve or reasonably calculated to improve the value of your property, but I suspect that this is just a maintenance item of this.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
All right, staff report for J4.
Riverside County recently solicited bids to perform slurry seal street improvements on several county roads, including Brookside Avenue. A portion of Brookside Avenue is coincident with the City of Beaumont corporate boundary. Consequently, the county is requesting to partner with the city and perform a full-width slurry seal on Brookside Avenue from approximately 500 feet west of Deodore Drive to Snowberry Road, roughly 2,600 linear feet. The county received bids on June 28, 2023, which included an additive bid item for the city-specific portion in the amount of $59,876.60. With contingency, administration, inspection, and material testing, the total cost for the city would be $74,876.60. A fee summary table is included in the staff report for additional information. The cost is higher than city's previous slurry seal projects, but it is consistent with recent county projects. The county will act as a lead agency on behalf of the city for the completion of the project. Scope will include crack sealing application of slurry seal, and restoration of all striping. The project is expected to be awarded August 29th, 2023, with construction commencing shortly afterwards. Funding for the project is expected to come from R24, which that project is, we're receiving bids tomorrow for. That concludes my presentation. Staff is available for any questions.
Thank you. Public comment on this?
I have no written comments. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
All right, council discussion, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, thank you. Robert, so was this section included in our, the city's plan to rehab the streets? And if so, what was the projected cost? Do you know the projected cost for that particular section? And then the third question to go along with it is, if we said no to this and we said, hey, county, we'll take care of it and we'll bill you for the other half of the street, what's staff's thought on that?
Certainly. It wasn't included in this, either this fiscal year or the next fiscal year's project. We did do an in-house analysis, but unfortunately we used the numbers from our previous slurry seal project, and it came back significantly cheaper. However, in verifying the county's numbers, you know, they advertise all of their bids online, and I was able to confirm that is the track of other projects, similar sized projects with the county. So unfortunately, I anticipate our project will come back with much higher cost than our last slurry seal project.
Okay, so if the city took it on and tried to bill the county, we'd be paying more, in your opinion?
Potentially.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember White?
Where is Snowberry Road? Where is Snowberry Road, sorry?
It's one of the exits out of Solera.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. No further discussion, we'll take a motion.
Alrighty, Mayor, I'll move to approve a cooperative agreement between the County of Riverside and the City of Beaumont for Brookside Avenue slurry seal improvements and authorize the city manager to sign the agreement in the amount not to exceed $74,876.60.
I'll second.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt?
Yes.
Councilmember Laura?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn?
Yes.
Mayor Martinez?
Yes. That brings us to item J5, ISF replacement vehicles. Staff report, looks like Mr. Story. Welcome.
Mayor, I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
These replacement vehicles are all funded by the State Transit Assistance Grant, is that correct?
No, the replacement vehicles are through our ISF, which is they're in our replacement plan for vehicles. There's one vehicle in this clump. We're going to one dealership where we're getting 9 vehicles. There's one vehicle in here that's going to be the transit shop truck. That one is funded to that.
That one's funded, okay, then
Correct.
I want to hear your report.
Then
I would like to hear your report.
Now you want, okay. Oh, I did. I just, I'm just wanted to feel warm and fuzzy in here. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this staff report before you is for a purchase order in the amount of $479,358.56 with Santa Margarita Ford. We have been consistently trying to replace vehicles in our fleet in all departments. It has been a challenge for us. One of the things we keep running into is availability. We have found dealerships that are willing to sell us a vehicle. It's just it's taking them 6 to 9 months to actually deliver it to us. This particular dealership has these vehicles ready for us and can get them to us now. And so we're excited to move this forward. In this opportunity, we have the opportunity to pick up 9 Ford F-250s. 8 of those are going to go to the Community Services Department, and these will be replacement vehicles for some of our 2006, 2007, and 2005, and one 2000 vehicle that we're currently using on our fleet. And so they're definitely part of our very aging fleet in our department, and those vehicles, those current vehicles that we have, are costing us a great deal to maintain. And then there is the one vehicle that will be purchased through Project T13, and that is through the Transit Department, and that is for, with the State Transit Assistant Grant Funds. That is for a shop truck for them that they will outfit with some different things that will help them be able to provide mobile services and attend to our fleet in various locations throughout our city. And so it's something that they want to add to their fleet as well. As mentioned, we are just trying to find dealerships and a way to purchase these vehicles as quickly as possible. With the amount that we're asking for today, we wanted to bring this before council so that you guys could see this amount and answer any questions that might arise from this particular purchase. If you guys do have any questions, I can answer them for you at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Story. Do we have public comment?
I have no written comments. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
All right, thank you for that. And do we have, looks like Councilmember Lara?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Real quick, Doug, the transit vehicle, that is a brand-new maintenance vehicle, is that correct? It's not a replacement?
Correct, that one is a new one.
Thank you.
Adding to the fleet.
That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, I was looking at where it was, Santa Margarita Ford. Not too
Santa
far.
Margarita, not too far.
Not too far. I was just
And
wondering.
they're actually agreed to deliver all the vehicles to us. I know.
Well, my concern was if you had a problem with the warranty and stuff, you'd have to keep going
No,
back that
it's-
distance. But, no, not too bad. Okay, any others? Or did you satisfy your question? All right, then I will take a motion from council.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve a purchase order in the amount not to exceed $479,358.56 to Santa Margarita Ford for the purchase of 8 2022 Ford F-250s for the Community Services Department and 1 2023 Ford F-250 for the Transit Department.
I'll second.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt,
Yes.
Councilmember Laura,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn,
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes. Right, with that, we're going to J6, the approval of the city attorney invoices for the month of July 2023.
And because this involves my law firm, I'll be recusing myself.
Thank you. Just want to remind the public that city council does receive detailed reports from city attorney on explanation on litigation. Question, public comment?
No written comments. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
Okay, any questions from staff, from council, or I'll take a motion?
I'll move to approve the invoices in the amount of $94,373.23.
I'll second. Oh, sorry.
You're fine.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt,
Yes.
Councilmember Laura,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn,
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes. All right, with that, it takes us to item K, legislative updates and discussion.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The legislative summer break ended yesterday, so August 14th, everybody was back up in Sacramento. There are approximately 1,000 bills that are still left to be considered. It's a thought that, about 25% of those might end up, going through, but they all will have their chance over the next 30 days. They're going to go through their various committees, and if they make it out of committee, they go to the opposite house from their origin for vote, and then that all has to happen by September 14th, and then from September 14th to October 14th, the governor has those 30 days to either sign into law or veto any bills that make it up to him. There are a number of bills that have been signed already. Some of the more notable ones, SB 522, which deals with compensation for city council boards, AB 356, which has to do with CEQA and consideration of aesthetic impacts, AB 925, which deals with vehicle removals based on expired registration, AB 1325, which deals with micro enterprise home kitchens, which we do deal with a lot here in Riverside County and the city of Beaumont, and SB 748 that deals with some information being provided to in various forms of for various forms of disability, so that local governments can provide that. And a number of other ones have been signed. Those were just some notable ones that I picked off of the governor's periodic legislative updates out of the governor's office. We have a number that we are continuing to watch as well. And many of those you guys have seen come through from League of California Cities and other agencies that we participate in that tend to report out. So once we get moving back through the end of the week, we'll have a better idea of what has made it out of various committees this week and where they're headed.
All right, thank you for that. Do we have any questions from council?
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
The first bill you mentioned, can you tell me what that was again, the one that was SB, I didn't write it down in time.
SB 522, having to do with city council compensation. It basically allows for compensation for city councils to be raised.
Significantly.
Yeah.
We'll be bringing a discussion back in September. Just to give you an idea, it is, for this population, this council has the potential to earn $1,600 a month.
Okay, and this is, I think I can ask this question of legal on this without getting too deep, but if the council were to approve an increase, it doesn't go to anyone who's currently serving in a follow-up election, is that correct?
I have to look at it again, but I'm not sure that that's correct anymore.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other? All right, thank you, appreciate it. That brings us to item L, the Economic Development Committee update.
All right. We did have an Economic Development Committee meeting last Wednesday. On that agenda were an update on the incentive programs for the downtown area. Right now, staff has received approximately 17 applications for incentive programs, which we're pretty excited about. They're all in various phases of review for their various different types of requests. We have a couple that will be coming to council, I believe, in the month of September, just as informational for your look to see what's been approved. And then we'll be bringing additional ones forward as they are ready. Of course, through this process, we've been able to discuss some of the roadblocks and hindrances and things that have come up along the way as we start to dive into how these things roll out. So staff is continually working with the business owners to get feedback and bringing that information to the Economic Development Committee. We also had a discussion on the Economic Development website, which was one of the items identified in the city's Economic Development Strategic Plan, which was adopted back in 2018. So we have not launched it out to the public yet, but some exciting information that will be forthcoming on that. And that concludes my report.
So much. Council questions? You have questions?
I do, well, just sort of to supplement your report. The website is outstanding, in my opinion. I know we are at a very soft launch, and we don't want to, make big news about it and have the website overwhelmed, and then we find there's misspellings, things like that. So I think it would be very useful, at least for the council here, to tour that. It's already up. And I didn't write down the address. I looked for it on it. You can't find a link to it on the website.
No, it's
Okay.
not attached to the website yet, and I actually sent each of you an email today that has that information on there, so. I know you work a
Some of
job,
us
so I
work.
know. I
I can't look
Yeah.
at my city phone all day.
Right, if it didn't come through or you guys have any issues, let us know, but.
What is the address?
It is Beaumont CA Business.
Oh, well, you let it out
dot
now.
gov, right.
Beaumont CA. No one will know. No one's listening. The paper won't report it. Beaumont,
Beaumont seat business.gov.
Yep, there you go. All right, any others? Okay, thank you, Ms. Taylor. Goes to item M, Treasurer Report.
Nothing at this time, Mayor.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer. N, City Clerk Report.
We're good.
Thank you. Item O, City Attorney Report.
Yes, just a brief update on some of the litigation matters that we're handling on behalf of the city that have been filed against the city. The Illapatafe case and Riverside Superior Court, and I've reported on this before, the city prevailed in defending the claims at the trial court level that were being pursued by Illapatafe. We still have the cross complaint pending, and so that's the status of the state court action. Federal court action, the magistrate court issued a recommendation on our motion to dismiss, recommending that the district court dismiss the injunctive relief and declaratory relief cause of action and abstain from hearing the civil rights damages portion of the case pending the outcome of the state court action. On Paula Ann Wright versus the city of Beaumont, that case is in the discovery stage. This is an alleged dangerous condition case that involved an e-bike accident. Juan Gabriel Cesares, that is in the pleading stage. We've tendered both the Wright and Cesares matters to Tri-Point for defense and indemnity, and so we're working through that with them and their legal counsel. And Cesares also involved a bicycle accident, and as I mentioned, it's currently in the pleading stage. And then also Nicholas Norman versus the city of Beaumont, that was removed to federal court with a case number pending. This is an alleged excessive force case by the individual who crashed into a brick wall and power pole and then left the scene. And there's a jury trial that's been tentatively set for July 16th, but the individual is facing some criminal charges which are likely to stay that trial date. And then Carolyn DeReich versus the city of Beaumont. That case in the discovery stage. This is also an alleged dangerous condition case that arises out of a slip and fall at the Cherry Festival. And so that case is sort of in the middle of its progress at the discovery phase. And we also have the Urban Logic case. The appellate court sent it back to the trial court, and so we're pursuing that claim against both. We're focusing the case against Torcal and Kieran McCarran. And that's all I can really report in open session this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Pinckney. That brings us to item P, City Manager Report.
Thank you, Mayor. In your packet, you have the latest and greatest transportation update. I also want to remind council that tomorrow at 4 p.m. at Mr. Taco, the Beaumont Police Department will be holding a Tacos with Traffic event. It is a no-host event, so we all have to buy our own tacos. And then the next round of the Citizen Academy is going to start September 6th. We're looking forward to that. That's been a very successful program. And don't forget, our third Gov in the Park will be held August 26th at Fallen Heroes. And we might have an appearance from Oakley. Maybe.
Maybe. Thank you. Comments, questions, Mr. White?
No, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Well, I just wanted to, was Mr. Story in the room when Oakley was here?
Yeah, I already checked that.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
I am definitely not fitting in that.
Oh, boy. I tell you, tough crowd. All right, that takes us to Q, future agenda items. Do we have any questions on those posted or anything new?
Mayor, if I may, those first two items, the first two bullet points will be brought to council in September.
Okay, thank you for that update. All right, moving on to council reports, item R. Councilmember Laura, will you go first today?
Sure, thanks, Mayor. A quick compliment to Doug and Kevin and staff. I appreciate the efforts that you guys make. I know you've got a lot of territory to cover, but the effort you made to clean up the walkways to schools prior to opening day, I thought was a great touch, so thank you very much for those efforts. You also, and staff, put a lot of effort into the Rangel softball park before their tournament. There was a lot of compliments on that. I was able to attend one of the games, and it was great. So thank you very much for that. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, next one, Councilmember Voigt.
I have nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Finn, will you go next?
Yes, thank you. On August 3rd, I attended the Transportation Now Committee meeting. There wasn't really anything to report out of that. On the 8th, I attended PASCOM. They mentioned the Watch Duty app for fires to keep track of things, and so we did a group download and checked things out and so forth, and it was right in the middle of some of those fires, and it was nice to see, and so it's a good service for the public to see what's going on, and they can get evacuation notices and so forth on those. On the 8th, Mayor and I attended our land use subcommittee, and on the 11th, I attended the Beaumont Chamber breakfast. Our guest speaker was Senator Rosalicia Ochoa-Bogue, and her main message for the day was let your voice be heard, and wanted to and encouraged public involvement in politics and what's going on in our state. So that's my report for the evening.
Thank you. Councilmember White?
So there has been a lot of action by the cities in the Hemet and San Jacinto area regarding a realignment of Highway 79 and moving towards encouraging RCTC to fund the 79 realignment through the valley, which is important to us because you can't consider that option without considering what happens when they get to Beaumont on the 10. And so the director of RCTC, Director Mayor, I'm sorry, she's not a director, she's Chief Executive Officer. She's established a subcommittee that's going to be made up of members of the cities in the past and the valley. And she's asked me to chair that subcommittee going forward. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on where that's going. And that's all that I have.
Thank you. You know, on that note, it's something that we've talked about, I don't know if it's in Plus or with, I've talked about with Elizabeth and so forth, but that whole idea of the 79 realignment keeps coming up. And, you know, it's really my view that we really need to start thinking about developing a plan for Beaumont Avenue and 10, since it's going to be coming down. And a lot of my concern is that the more we say, yeah, it needs to include it, we need to make sure that there's studies involved so that we can come up and say, here's what we need, and this is what it's going to cost, so that it's incorporated into plans, or if they come up with some funding, then we can give them a number. And that only happens if we have a plan. So I'm not sure if you think, and we'll have to discuss this at a later time, but I'm just thinking out loud, if it's better to start maybe, I don't know, maybe a Plus committee can take it or something, and then see how your ad hoc's doing with RCTC. But I really want to get moving on that, because what I'm afraid is going to happen is that they're going to start funding and we don't have anything to say. So I don't want to get into a big discussion, but I just wanted to plant that in your head.
Can I just briefly respond to that?
Yeah, as long as they don't discuss that.
So this has been going on for actually 4 or 5 months now, that him at San Jacinto actually passed some resolutions on it. And the funding or the estimate for the realignment is $1.5 billion. And so that is going to have to be federal funding. And you can't get federal funding for a project that is a county or state project. So it has to incorporate Interstate 10 to become a federal funding opportunity. So I think that that's the approach that we are taking, is that we have to work together as a 5 or 6 city group to make sure that happens that way. So I do agree with you on that.
Very well. All right, so thank you for that. For me, I was on vacation, so I don't have too much. I did go to the Good Morning Breakfast, Chamber Breakfast, and listen to the senator speak. The past Vet Expo, we had great attendance. And if you have a chance to check out, News Channel 3 did a little ditty on us, and it was well done, I thought. And I want to extend appreciation to staff we've been having several resident email concerns come in, and staff has been really responsive to that, and some of those are very detailed on the response, and still some of them are still going on with staff involvement and so forth. So I just want to comment and thank staff for that, keeping the residents, all their concerns to heart, and that we are working on that as diligently as we can. So we appreciate that. Right, so for adjournment tonight, I'd like to dedicate the meeting in memory of those lives lost in the Maui fires. Very devastating, and with the fires recently that we've had, I'm sure that we can understand how that could have gone a much different direction for us. So with that, I'd like to adjourn the meeting at 8:00 p.m.